The grain markets pushed up into the Memorial Day weekend with speculators exiting short positions in most of the markets throughout the week for that matter. Cotton had a great week but was lower today. Live cattle are watching a red-hot cash cattle market, and lean hog futures are stuck in a downstream drift to lower prices.
Live from the final unofficial laps of official non-calendrical spring via Farm Journal Studios, this is AgriTalk. This afternoon, we'll chat with Mike Miner from Professional Ag Marketing. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson. Hello. Hi. Now here's the host of AgriTalk, Chip Flory.
All right, Davis, thank you so much. Yeah, here we are, end of the week, heading into a 3-day weekend.
That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Seems like a perfect time, just an absolute perfect time to be giving the cattle market some news that it probably really isn't too happy about getting. Mm-hmm. And I am not talking about the cattle on feed report, which, let's hit that real quick.
By the way, we had that too, didn't we?
Yeah, we had that too. Let's hit the cattle on feed report. Welcome. I'm Chip. That's Davis.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Let's hit the cattle on feed report real quick. Total number of cattle on feed on May 1 down 0.86%.
I was going to say.
The trade was looking for a 0.8% decline, so right in line.
Wow.
Placements down 5.8%. The trade was looking for a 6.1% decline. Again, right in line. Mm-hmm. Marketing's up 10.1%. Trade was looking for an increase of 9.8%. Also in line with trade expectations. I'm not going to take we'll check with Mike, with Mike Miner from Professional Ag Marketing here in just a moment on what he thinks about this cattle on feed report. But Reuters has just reported that bird flu virus particles were found in tissue samples taken from one dairy cow sent to slaughter at a U.S. meat processing plant, but none of the virus was detected in samples from 95 other cattle. That's according to USDA.
Okay.
Meat from the animal was prevented from entering into the nation's food supply. Agriculture and health officials have scaled up testing. And they will continue to test more aggressively for the H5N1 virus in beef. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just simply and finding it from one is kind of evidence or proof that the process works. So,
well, let me just take a moment and clarify that I've heard what you said correctly. A sample from a dairy cow in the slaughter system was found. Not a beef cow.
No.
But a dairy cow that was being processed for beef, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That's how I read it.
I got you. Yeah.
That's how I read it, but that it's hard to tell the difference between dairy beef and beef when it's all wrapped in white paper.
Well, that's true. You got to unwrap it and grill it up first. Sounds like a challenge.
Is that when you figure it out?
Accepted, sir. Let's do
All
this.
right. Welcome to AgriTalk. Boy, we got lots of news straight out the chute for you.
Yeah, man.
All right. Let's go ahead and get to the markets.
Okay. Hard red winter and spring wheat futures finished the week with solid gains, while soft red winter wheat futures spent most of the day under light pressure. July SRW did trade on both sides of $7 for a fourth consecutive week, but the contract did close well below this week's high. Expectations of a big soft red winter wheat harvest in the U.S. limited buying interest for the second half of the week. July HRW futures spent most of the day on the plus side of unchanged and pushed higher in late trade to close near the high of the week. Declining crop expectations for Russia and Ukraine limited selling in the hard wheats. July HRW wheat futures were 10.5 higher, 7.21 and a quarter. July SRW wheat down 3/4 of 1 cent, 6.97 and a quarter. July spring wheat closed at 7.52 3/4. That's up 8 3/4 cents.
Soft red winter wheat futures did not want to rally today. Did not want to move higher with the hard wheats, either the hard red winter or hard red spring wheat. kind of was an anchor on what was happening in the corn market as well. But July SRW wheat futures on the week up 46 cents.
Wow.
Maybe it was due for a little bit of profit taking, I guess. July HRW wheat up 59 and 1/2 cents, and July spring wheat up 41 and a quarter.
Well, Chip, corn futures opened fractionally higher and closed back at the opening range while posting an inside trading day. After a big rally on Monday, corn futures fought to hold on to those gains and slowly built upside momentum. Short covering by professional trading funds provided much of the support for corn prices. More Midwest rains provided some fundamental support for corn prices, although many crop watchers are reluctant to build in yield or acreage losses at this time. There is more rain in the forecast for the weekend. Traders will reassess crop potential with the flip of the calendar to June. July corn futures were 3/4 of 1 cent higher at 4.64 3/4. September corn up 1 1/4 cent to 4.74 1/2. December corn futures closed at 4.88 1/4. That's up 1 3/4 cents, Chip.
Yeah, corn planting isn't all that late yet, but when we take a look at the forecast for next week, it's going to push the boundaries of lateness. There's no doubt about that. And that's going to get the market's attention, I think, next week. It had the market's attention this week. Mm-hmm. July corn up 12 1/4 cents. December corn up 11 3/4 cents.
Well, July soybean futures found tough resistance at 12.50 this week, and that is likely to continue next week. Chart watchers say a single close above 12.50 in July beans would open significant upside potential for old and new crop contracts. Strengthened soybean meal futures helped bean prices push higher today. July meal opened slightly higher and near session lows and closed solidly higher near session highs. Bean oil traded higher early in the week but gave up those gains. Planting delays are expected to continue in the week ahead and are expected to become more of a market factor in post-Memorial Day trade. July beans were 8 3/4 cents higher today, 12.48. August beans up 7 1/4 to 12.45. November beans closed at 12.19 1/2, up 3 1/2 cents, Chip.
Yeah, get this spread action. We had July soybean meal up $9.80 today, and we had July soybean oil down 24 points. That was today.
Wow.
On the week, July bean oil down 32 points. July soybean meal up $17.70 a ton. It was a big spreaders week. July beans on the week up 20 cents. November beans up 16 1/4.
Well, Chip, after 2 days of a massive rally, cotton futures posted an inside trading day with a high range open and a low range close. July cotton today 120 points lower at 80.52. Some big ups this week in the cottons, but lower today.
Yeah, but a big week, up 463 points.
Hey. Boxed beef prices were higher again this morning on good movement, and that helped support front month live cattle futures. Cash cattle trade this week widely expected to reach a new all-time high. June live cattle 17 1/2 higher today, 183.70. August feeders $1.22 1/2 lower, 260.22 1/2. Lean hog futures slumped for a new to the move low to end the week. June hogs 25 cents lower on the day, 94.27 1/2, Chip Laurie.
All right, June live cattle on the week up $2.65. August feeder cattle up 37 1/2 cents. Not much movement there. June lean hogs down $2.22 1/2 cents. Down 4 out of the 5 days this week. I was fearful that it was going to be worse than that for June hogs, but down to 22 1/2. All right, Mike Miner, Professional Ag Marketing, is up next here on AgriTalk.
The best talkers in ag, including you. Join the conversation on AgriTalk. Call us at 855-4TALK-AG.
You know, Davis, live cattle futures have been so squirrely around the H5N1 in the dairy herd.
Well, sure.
And the risk of it getting into the beef supply that I'm not exactly sure how the cattle market is going to respond or react to this. Again, Reuters has reported that, let me read it exactly, bird flu virus particles were found in tissue samples taken from one dairy cow sent to slaughter at a U.S. meat processing plant, but None were detected in samples from 95 other cattle, according to USDA. So, yeah, cattle market's got some things to sort out there.
Well, yeah, nothing like getting this news after the markets are closed ahead of a 3-day weekend.
Right.
I don't know how to process this.
Well, it might work to the it might work to the advantage.
Okay.
Give us a little more time for more information and to digest everything. Let's find out what Mike thinks. Mike Miner, Professional Ag Marketing. How you doing, Mike? It's great to talk with you again.
Yeah, great to be back. How are you doing, Chip?
Doing real fine, real fine. So this news, it broke after the markets were closed. What do you think? Might the market make a big deal out of this?
Well, I thought it was interesting how the other day you heard about the Australia news when they stepped in and announced that. It didn't seem to affect the market there either. And now that we got this news going into a 3-day weekend, it seems like we're beyond this story for now, at least. I could be wrong by that, but like you said, it's going to be interesting how we act going into a longer weekend here.
Yeah. That's a good way of describing it, and it does a nice job of summing up how I kind of feel about this whole thing too. Aren't we? It feels like the market has moved past this story as well. Good stuff. What'd you think of the cattle on feed report? We had total number of cattle on feed on May 1 down 0.86%, placements down 5.8%, and marketing's up 10.1%.
Yeah, I thought they were very close to the estimates. I think for just a main bullet point, by the time we get through this weekend, I have a hard time seeing the trade really focus on this at all on Tuesday for the report. So I don't think there's anything earth-shattering. It's hard enough for the cattle on feed report to have an impact, even when we have some substantial changes over a long weekend, the way it is in most reports. So, at this point here, I don't see the report having a real big impact. Like you said, we were really close to the estimates there, and I think now we move on to some other things. But a couple things did catch my eye. Fed supply for August is way down from the placement number we had. That's actually 5% lower than last year, so that was interesting. And then also, I think it's worth noting that when we look at the bigger cattle, they seem to get bigger, and that's no surprise, right? When we're looking at feed going down in cost a little bit in the DDG market or corn, and looking forward, it definitely shows some incentive for them to make these cattle heavier, Chip.
Yeah, it certainly does. One, and the Packers are not backing off on the heavier cattle, and as long as they're not doing that, they're going to get heavier cattle. It seems to be the case. Cash market this week. And with what happened in the box beef trade, boy, there's not many signs of a slowdown in beef demand, is there?
Not yet, but I do look at it from a little bit different perspective. Because of the increase we saw in box beef, I think it was a lot to do with just the seasonal aspect of it. We saw some heavy buying ahead of this weekend. Last week, and now we set back a little bit. So that shows me that it's more of just a seasonal bump, and how we come out of this and watch demand going forward is going to be really interesting, because really at this point, I think cash cattle wise, we're seeing something interesting there with cash cattle in the south only at 187 versus the north and the 192 north type area. And that's a pretty big spread. Usually that should be like $3-4. It's starting to get pretty wide out there. So
Yep. Yeah, it's and the heavier cattle are coming out of the north, and that's some additional proof that the Packers are willing to pay up for those heavy animals. It's an interesting market, man. There's no doubt. As long as we're talking livestock, these hogs, Mike, it just is. It's the beatings are going to continue until morale improves, I guess.
Yeah. So when I look at it, I think fundamentally the futures are going with with the fundamentals and correcting itself. We're getting a little bit more normal to where the index is. It's only about a $2.50 spread now. Normal's closer to probably $2 spread, and the market's really been correcting that. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, that was $11 between the two. So at this point, we're getting a little bit of a fundamental correction. I mean, by the time you get that June contract into the lower 90s here, we spent a ton of time in this area back in the fall, and I think there could be some good support down here now. So we'll see if we can get this market excited again here headed into the summer, Chip, for a couple weeks, usually led by the cash market there for a while.
Yeah. I don't see how demand is going to let us down on pork. I had a text conversation, a really cool text conversation with a listener last night. He stopped and bought some steaks, and he stopped and bought some pork chops. The steaks cost him $30 for the pair. The pork chops, which were big, thick, bone-in, delicious chops, $5.99 is what he spent on the pair. $5.99 versus $30 on the steaks. I don't know how pork demand can let us down, Mike.
Well, it makes me think about the time of the year, right? This time of the year, you talk about grilling steaks. At the end of the summer, you talk about grilling hot dogs, just from a seasonal perspective. Yeah. And, we had a really nice cutout all the way through the winter. It was great weather, 14 degrees above normal temps for February for Minneapolis, for example. When you start talking about that demand for choice starting earlier in the year, I wonder if we'll start to transition towards some of those cheaper meats earlier in the summer this year, Chip.
Okay. All right. Good. Let's get this grain conversation started. Dude, some farmers are getting a little frustrated with the way that their crop looks, with the seed that's still sitting in the shed, and the way the corn market is performing. Do you think that frustration is warranted at this point?
A little bit, and it's tough. From a strict numbers perspective, you're not going to see the whole story. I don't think, we're 70% planted, 76% was last year's progress, 71% on a 5-year average. So we're really right in that range. We're right where we should be after huge progress last week. And now you see what's happened, especially after last night, spots of Omaha everywhere throughout Iowa. We're already talking replant in a lot of areas. And now after this, now we're really going to have some stuff to think about here. So I'm having a problem comparing it to something like 2019, though, because at this time we were only 50%. And it just feels a lot different. We started off with really no water table in a lot of the corn belt. So we were able to finish planting even after we caught some pretty heavy rains this time. And, as we look forward, I think it's really interesting that when I look at counties that are still technically in the drought map after yesterday, like Marshall County in Iowa, for example, I got a picture of a complete cornfield covered in water. It looked like a lake yesterday. And technically that county Thursday, that was still in a drought. It had stage 1 and 2 going on. So it's, 10% is even a stretch to have for corn production located within a drought in the United States. And last year in June, it was 70% of the corn production was located in a drought. So at this point, it's very hard, we've realized over history, for the funds to get excited about too much water. So I feel like they wanted to make that transition so bad to talking about the forecast and rain makes grain, kind of after we got this last WASD report, kind of after we talked about planning progress picking up. And now with this, it really throws a wrench in it. I don't know how they're going to act, but I can tell you one thing, that planning report on June 28th, that's going to be really interesting with what they show on acreage.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to talk about that a little bit more when we come back. We're coming right up on a break here, Mike. The planting delays that we have seen, it doesn't include some of that corn replanting that's going to have to happen. So I'm willing to say it's at least 25% of the corn crop is looking at a later than optimal planting date. So what might that mean for the markets later in the year? We got to talk about that. What about on soybeans? And we've got a bunch of demand issues to get to. We're talking with Mike Miner from Professional Ag Marketing right here on AgriTalk.
Let's go to the markets page at profarmer.com and check today's closes, where July HRW wheat futures were 10 1/2 cents higher at 721 1/4. July SRW wheat down 3/4 of 1 cent to 697 1/4. July corn futures 3/4 of 1 cent higher, 464 3/4. December corn futures closed at 488 1/4. That's up 1 3/4 cents. July beans were 8 3/4 cents higher, but 12.48. November beans closed at 12.19 1/2. That's up 3 1/2 cents on the day. July cotton today 120 points lower, 80.52. On your livestocks, June fat cattle were 17 1/2 cents higher, 183.70. August feeder futures $1.22 1/2 lower at 260.22 1/2, and June lean hogs today 25 cents lower, 94.27 1/2. Get more. Go to tryprofarmer.com.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. The truth is hard to come by these days, unless you listen to AgriTalk.
Well, according to KWWL.com in eastern Iowa, Friday morning's storm system classified as a derecho, Chip.
Really?
Yep.
Holy smokes!
Says
that
the
was
storm's
this
Friday morning.
morning's?
Part of what's classified as a derecho began in western Nebraska, moved east through Iowa and into Illinois. This is extended 600 plus miles. This according to KWWL.com.
All right. Well, I hope Big Apple Joe doesn't get blown away. He's over there. He's got a storm coming in. Well, he's getting heavy rain right now. He's got a storm on its way. There are severe thunderstorms just north of Danville, Illinois. Heavy rains through central Illinois. Severe thunderstorm warning coming up out of Clarksville, Illinois. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Clarksville, Illinois. And that there's a line of showers in eastern Iowa and southeast Iowa and northeast Missouri that all of that was supposed to have pushed off to the east by now.
Mm-hmm.
And it just keeps generating.
Yep.
Just keeps generating. Okay. We are in the middle of a conversation with Mike Miner, Professional Ag Marketing. Mike, the comments are coming in already. This from at MD56137. He says, Chip Flory, every pothole in southwest Minnesota is full. Top is off the yield now. I have some seed customers that haven't planted beans yet. To say that the top is off of yield because of the planting delays, I can't argue that. Would you? Now, the reason I'm talking to Mike about this is Mike goes out and does a hard look at the crops every summer, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We spent a full week, 2,200 miles across the U.S. This would be my 8th or 9th year doing it.
Right. So Mike goes out and takes a hard look at the crop. He's got some experience in doing this, some great experience in doing it. I can't argue with at MD about the top end of the corn yield already gone in some areas because of those wet conditions out there, right? The other thing is, and I meant to make mention of this at the end of the last segment, we can't forget that farmer after farmer after farmer will make the comment, and we've seen it, you lose more yield to too much water than you do to not enough rain. That's pretty consistent over the years, and I believe that. In a big way. So saying that the top end is off the corn yield, I don't think I'm going to argue with that. Are you?
I probably won't argue it. No. The only thing I would say, so I'm in southwest Minnesota right now in Laverne, and you go north of us, there's potholes. We've had some replant done. You go south of us, Beersford, Sioux City, they've got pretty much a whole soybean crop to plant down there yet. Pretty much any direction you go from us right here, you run into problems of some sort or degree. And so I'm not going to argue with that at all, especially if you
Right.
have crusting or problems with things
Yeah.
coming up. Your top end's going to be taken off.
Yeah.
The problem I'm going to struggle with it is longer term here. And we saw it after 19. The grain market has such a hard time going lower off too much rainfall. Like it resists it really hard, doesn't it, Chip,
Oh,
from
yeah.
this time of the year?
Certainly does. Certainly does. I mean, when I'll go all the way back to 1993 with the flooding across Iowa and
Hmm.
Minnesota. The market didn't want to believe it. Market didn't believe it until we got to November that
Hmm.
the rain was causing issues and taking yield away. And you want to talk about devastatingly wet. That was devastatingly wet in 1993. We're not close to that. Not yet. I
Planting
mean, it's
soybeans from a
yeah,
helicopter, Chip.
that's right. I mean, it's got to rain until September for us
Yeah,
to reflect the conditions that we saw in 1993. So we're not there, not yet.
not yet.
What is it? So this conversation about the crops. What kind of an impact is that having on day-to-day trade in the grains right now? Let's start with that short-term view.
Okay. Short term, I think it's pretty easy to see right now that with what you've got going on in the Corn Belt with this delayed planning and with some of these potholes, yield potentials, the market really keeps uncertainty in mind. And that's going to keep you buying corn on any breaks of 3 to 7 cents. And we've really seen that, I think. So in the short term, you get a little pullback. I think you find enough buyers to keep you floating higher and higher and higher and kind of keep this uptrend going on here. Does it give us enough potential to really go up and strike some of these higher prices? I still think we need more than that. But at this point, I think short term, it keeps buyers in the market on any short little sell off that we've had. And I think you saw a lot of that this week too. And I wasn't surprised to see, like after the WASDE report, to see a strong sell off there for a few days, find some footing around some really nice support levels, and then kind of work our way back up again.
Right.
I think that's exactly what the market needed, Chip.
Okay. Yeah. Good thoughts. Longer term, we get the updates on Tuesday afternoon this next week. Corn plantings, instead of being 1 point behind the 5-year average, all of a sudden we're, I don't know, 7 or 8 points behind the 5-year average. That last 10 to 15% is looking more difficult to plant than what it did as of today. What are your thoughts? Does the potential for corn planting delays become a bigger issue next week?
Next week it does. And the one thing we'll have to keep in mind with that report, obviously, is what conditions those are planted into as
Yep.
we mudded anything in or if it got rained out or washed out. And then obviously what did get done at some points throughout this week through the Corn Belt. Because there was some areas that still got planted there, just not going to end up being the best quality. So the market's going to have to keep that in mind as they go through those numbers too, Chip.
Right.
Right. That's what I'm kind of focused on out of that report on Monday. Upside here, I mean, I think you could start talking about fund money flow next with what the funds are doing.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's been fun to watch the funds slip out of those short positions here recently. We've crossed some resistance levels. We've built some upside momentum. The funds can't be comfortable on the short side of the market any longer. I wouldn't think, Mike.
No. So going back to February 20th, we had 328,000 contracts of managed money short positions. So that was a substantially large position short in the market. And today we're only sitting about 69,000 short contracts, they would believe, around today. So 250,000 contracts covered. We put in 50 cents from the low to the high in the corn market in December corn during that time frame. So, as you look forward and you look at any of these weather problems causing uncertainties, I mean, even if you go long a little bit and you start adding some long contracts, cover up the rest of these shorts, I mean, what are we talking about? Another 25 cents on this December corn market pops you right above that, 510, 520 type of area. And there's going to be a heck of a lot of farmers selling in between this point and that point, I think, as well. So I think those are some of the targets and some of the areas I think that we're really going to have to focus on a recovery through as we talk about weather uncertainties and what kind of impact the funds can have here going forward.
Nothing would shake this market up like a shot of demand for new crop beans, though, Mike, because it has been terrible to this point.
Completely. I mean, when you say terrible, I mean just non-existent out of China is really the way to put it.
Yeah.
Completely. It's disappointing because export sales for China being nothing. I mean, as of our old crop soybeans, they made up over half of our old crop soybean business so far. And that, I mean, really looking forward, this is the worst we've seen it since about 2005 with China being gone. And, Brazil's had a massive crop over the last couple of years, I think, which has played a substantial part in that. And personally, I don't think this is the end of it. I think when you start going forward, you start to talk more about the current trade war we got going on and getting more attention on that probably later in the year once we start to get past some of the supply concerns. I think that's going to play a bigger part in Chinese direction of purchases here over the next couple of years to come, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not afraid of talking politics in the morning hour of AgriTalk. We tend to stay away from it in the afternoon hour. But I'm telling you, it feels like rolling retaliation by China for the Biden administration's policies towards China, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would sure say so. And obviously they've had help because of the available supplies they've had from our counterparts down south. But I mean, if you look at their prices, their soybeans on the July chart for the Chinese exchange, I mean, they've really been rallying since they made a low in February. Over the past 5 months, this is the highest price we've seen. And if you put that into a U.S. price, I mean, you're talking almost $15 a bushel equivalent to the U.S. for Chinese soybeans right now. So, their soybean demand is looking strong. Their cash soybean prices are rising out of Brazil, and that's starting to make us look a little bit more competitive. And maybe we're going to see, at least out of the PNW, maybe we will start to see a little bit more now. But like you said there, it doesn't matter what president you have in there come in November. It seems like both are pretty much standing on this side, aren't they?
Yeah, it certainly does. Certainly does. And we should mention that this week there was talk that China did step in and buy some beans out of the PNW. But what concerns me is that it's going to be a head fake like they pulled on us in wheat. And it's going to be tough for the market to handle that. Mike, good stuff. Have a great weekend, okay?
Thank you. You as well.
You bet. You bet. That's Mike Miner, Professional Ag Marketing. All right, Davis and I are going to be wrapping up the week when we come back on AgriTalk.
Do you suffer from talking on the radio phobia? No problem. Send us a tweet at #AgriTalk.
See, because I was thinking, hey, everybody, welcome back to AgriTalk. Because I was thinking, I used to drive that F-150, the full size.
Right.
And if you needed to change the tire, you had to get under the hood because you stick the little crank thing in there to crank down the, and that's where they store it, or at least in my model year, it was stored under the hood.
Yep, I remember that.
So if you wanted to lower the tire from underneath the truck bed itself, you got to get that thing out and
you got to get
hope
you got to
it
get
isn't
the rod
caked in gravel. Yeah,
right.
I was laughing because I totally misunderstood. Because I would think, okay, my flat tire. Oh, I'll check under the hood.
Yeah.
That'd be like if you ran out of gas and then you got like the tire
jacked
crank.
up.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's how
what
I
are
was
you
thinking.
doing? I'm out of gas. What do you mean? You got
My oil is low. Bring me a squeegee, quick!
Somebody. Oh my! No, I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
I'm gonna stop. Here we are at the end of the week.
it sure seems like it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. What do you got going this weekend? You got big stuff? You already did your tree stuff. You're all done, right?
Well, I all done would be would there's some varying levels of completeness when it comes. I think I lost I think I've got a total of 6 trees that have gone down this week.
Huh.
And I'm not one of those guys that's got to have a perfectly clean timber.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I don't mind some brush piles here and there.
Sure.
For one thing, it's habitat.
The threshers love it.
There you go. There you go. But when it gets really tangled up and messy, I kind of like to get that cleaned up. Well, after this week, I've got a spot out in the timber that is really messy, and it's going to need to get cleaned up. And then I've got a line of pine trees. I've got a very small pasture, very small pasture. You've seen it.
I've seen it.
It's like a postage stamp up there.
Yeah.
But there's a line of pine trees that runs right through the middle of it. Why they were there when we bought it, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But there they are. I never cut them out. And, over the years, a couple have died. But there's those trees. And again, it's habitat. When it's snowing out, the deer love it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's worked out. But the other day when I was out grilling the pork chops and the wind came through, it snapped off 2 of the live pine trees that up in that pasture.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've got a fair amount of cleanup to do around here before I can say that everything is said and done. But the good news is the tree that was leaning over the propane tank has been cleaned up and put away.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now that's no maneuver
I kind of felt like felt like that needed to get done.
That one makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. Because you're anti-explosion over there at the Flory organization, aren't you?
That's exactly
right. You say
right.
no to explosions when you can?
I do. I am a frequent caller of 811 if need be. I'm not going to do anything that is going to result in that or a busted fiber cable.
See, that's not inexpensive. That one.
I would hate to do that. Yeah.
I did a little tree trimming today too. I told you I had that one that's kind of hanging low, but it's hooked on, by dead sort of branch material up above.
Yeah, it's hanging really low now.
I was out there with the dog this morning first thing, and I looked up at it and I thought, I bet I could reach those lowest leaves there. Because it's probably 30 feet long altogether.
Yeah.
So I reached up, and sure enough, I could get one, and I kind of worked my way up till I had a little bit better grip, and it kind of started cracking, and before I knew it, it was in the yard. Here I stand.
Nice.
I'm trimming trees in my flip-flops and my robe. The dog thought I was a hero. Like, dude, look at the stick this guy got. No wonder he's in charge. So I kind of picked it up and ran around the yard a little bit, just to show off.
Right, right.
It was cool.
That's very cool. Very cool. I hope the neighbors have got video.
I can't imagine what sort of video my neighbors must have just after a year and a half of being here.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, over the weekend, I'm going to be thinking about planning delays.
Okay. Yes.
I am going to be thinking about how the cattle market is going to respond to this word that tissue of one dairy cow that went through a slaughter processing. They found the H5N1 virus in the tissue of that cow. It's one cow. There were 95 others that they found nothing. But I'm a little uneasy on how the cattle market is going to respond to that.
Yeah.
We're not going to see much price movement, if any, from the cattle on feed report. The cold storage report was out this afternoon too. I have not had an opportunity to check that out or even to see much market reaction to it. But the cold storage report was out as well, so maybe there's some market moving information in that. But boy, trying to figure out exactly how the cattle market's going to respond to this news from Reuters is going to be that's going to be on my mind this weekend.
Yeah. I'm thinking about Mike Miner did a great job. We haven't highlighted the conversation nearly enough here, but he shocked me by using the word replanting. Dude,
oh, yeah.
I mean, I get it. Droughts are cured by floods. Okay, I get that. It just really took me by surprise.
It's happening.
I hadn't put it all together. You've heard about this?
Oh, yeah. Ken,
Okay.
Ken talked about it. Ken Ferry talked about it at the middle of the week.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
With some issues in central Illinois, but we're going to have plenty of replanting that's going to happen in South Dakota, Minnesota, far eastern Nebraska, in Iowa, Missouri. And it may have gotten planted on time or even early the first time, but how do you factor in that late planting on replant corn? National Weather Service 6-10-day outlook, May 30th through June 3rd. Above normal temperatures, Wisconsin, Iowa, the western half of Missouri, and points to the north and west of that. Near normal to below normal temperatures in the eastern corn belt. We've got above normal precipitation expected through Minnesota, most of Iowa, most of Missouri, and points to the west. Near normal in Illinois and Indiana, and below normal in the far eastern belt. Happy Memorial Day, everyone. God bless you all. We'll talk to you again on Monday morning.